Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bedomy, and this is Witcher 2, The Assassin of Kings. The sequel to the original Witcher 1, which didn't have any subtitles, and the second game developed by CD Projekt Red. And also, this is the game that actually put CD Projekt Red on the map in the world of, in the eye of the wider world. So far, they've been known for, only Witcher 1 and for Good Old Games, which was a platform that sold games without DRM protection, which is honestly, I think, a nice touch compared to the competition they have at this point. But we're not here to discuss platforms, we're here to discuss games themselves. So, here's a bit of a development history for Witcher 2 and what, in my opinion, makes it inferior sequel when we compare it to the first game. First off, the Witcher 1 was created by heavily modified version of the Aurora engine. And that made porting the game from PC to other platforms a wee bit difficult, if I do say it mildly. It was nigh impossible, honestly. Witcher 1 was a PC game through and through, so you could port it to another console or platform. Well, you could port it to if you wanted to, you could port it better on a Mac or a Linux system, but consoles such as Xbox and PlayStation they were another story. There was a studio that tried to do it, but at the end of it, they failed, and their relationship with CD Projekt Red was, they didn't part on friendly terms, honestly, and that's a bit of a shame, honest. Because one, Aurora Engine was created primarily for RPG games, and those were such as Neverwinter Nights, and I'm pretty sure, it wasn't Baldur's Gate. Anyway, it was primarily focused on PCs, and to counter this, in the future, CD Projekt Red developed their own custom engine that will allow for custom lighting effects, better graphical presentation, and more of a better cinematic presentation overall. And here's where I think that the game actually suffers because of it. I'm glad, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that the game has a visual upgrade, because one, the Witcher 1 looks dated, even by the standards when it came out, it looked dated. I'm not gonna lie about it. The gameplay mechanics, while weird, were something you got used to and you could have fun with it. And I'm primarily referring to the combat. So I'm glad that they tweaked those mechanics a bit, but I honestly think that they tweaked them too much in this particular title. It is an action-oriented game, I'm not gonna lie, but honestly, it's too much console-focused, and I'll show you what I mean by that by taking a look at the options menu. That's right. The only way you can adjust the visual options in this game is through the launcher. If you want to change something graphically in the game, you have to exit the game and start the launcher in order to get to this menu, or if you want to change keys for your control scheme, you really have to turn off the game and restart it again in order to actually access these said options. First things first, we'll take a look at the graphical options themselves. As you can see, we can adjust texture quality, shadow quality, bloom, blur effects, depth of field, motion blur, and such, which is rather lovely, as well as the aspect ratio, screen resolution, full screen disabled or enabled. Honestly, I wish there was that these options were actually implemented in the game itself, but since we're here, I'm just going to give you a quick warning. Whatever you do, please make sure that dangling objects and uber sampling are disabled. For some reason, the red engine that's running the game isn't capable of... I'm not sure if it's engine limitation or weird bug, but when these particular options are enabled, your mouse is going to go. It will lag. It will not respond properly, and it will affect your experience with the game negatively. So please do make sure that if you're playing this, make sure that these two are disabled, and your life should be easier. It won't be perfect, but it will be enjoyable compared to having these two enabled. Okay, that's it for the visual effects. Now let's take a look at the input settings. As you can see, we have rebindable key. Every action has a separate key attached to it, which is always nice. And every action is, well, most of these actions can be rebound to a different key. Unfortunately, the game doesn't tell you this, but there is a bit of a console limitation, such as attack buttons can actually be interaction buttons as well. If you end up in a combat situation and the game hasn't registered that you entered combat yet, you will accidentally start picking up herbs or interacting with objects while the enemies clock away at you, or hack away at you in this particular case. So do try to avoid the interactable areas with interactable objects and enemies in the same area, or just draw your weapon first and then try to go and wait a second or two before you actually start hacking away. Okay, that's the keyboard and mouse. As you can see, every action is rebindable apart from the character sheet, inventory, and quick load. And this category, which is somewhat understandable considering the fact that these shortcuts are, at this point, set in stone for every gamer that plays on the mouse and keyboard. We will go automatically for I for inventory, journal, J for journal, map for M. So it's understandable that these are not changeable, but I wish there was an option if for one reason or the other my keyboard, this specific key bindings died off for some reason. Anyway, that's the keyboard, and for the gamepad, well, everything is locked in, so you cannot change anything. Which is, I'm not sure if I would call it weird or just dumb. Granted, I'm not used to playing. I usually don't play games with a gamepad. I only reserve my gamepad for couch co-op games such as Magica or Fighters, because the input is a bit easier than for the usage of the mouse and keyboard. But honestly, I think that the pre-made control scheme here is decent. I might be wrong. I might be wrong on this one. But if you play the game on a console or with a gamepad, please let me know in the comments, please. And why did I say please twice? Anyway, final option is the DLC settings, which is basically, do you wish to enable or disable specific DLC packages? Most of these are just cosmetics or some beginning items you can get in the game. Honestly, I won't say they're bad, but if you play the first game, you will get better equipment from the start just because of the save files. So the beginning items are mostly a good money earner at the nearby store. And since we're here already, let's just discuss one more thing that you should keep in mind. Please make sure that you have a merchant mod and two other mods, which are called gambling mod, if I'm not mistaken, which it's not gambling per se, it just lets you adjust the amount of money you can earn from playing minigames, such as dice poker or fist fighting or arm wrestling. It basically allows you to adjust the amount of money you can earn from the said minigames. The merchant mod will basically balance the economy of the game, because the unadjusted because the vanilla game really has a weird economy system, and I'll show you that momentarily. Finally, go for the automatic win for minigames automatic win, because these minigames are, I mean, they are playable, but due to the controls, there's a... Actually, I'll explain it when we start playing this. I'm playing this as on vanilla settings without mods at the moment, just so that the review of this video, just so you can see what the vanilla game looks like. So let's start the game off, and then we will actually discuss the gameplay itself. Alright, intro credits, boring, and I won't show you the whole cinematic, but, or maybe I will, I'm not sure. Let's give it a watch and see how it goes. Alright, I think that's enough of intro cinematics. I usually don't want to spoil the story for anyone who hasn't played the game, but this game has been in the area, well, not area, but in online and active for a good while, so you probably already know the story. So let's just get back to the review itself. Actually, I'm not sure if I would call this a review. It's more of a first impressions videos. But anyway, these are the in-game options. We'll discuss the game as we enter the gameplay itself. First off, we have this Enable Steam Cloud, which is Save Your Progress Online. So if you delete your progress, or if something happens and you lose your save files on the PC, you can get them back from the Steam Cloud. That's your own personal decision if you want to use it or not. I prefer not to. You have sound and music options, which is just 3 separate sliders that allow you to adjust the volume for music, sound, and dialogue. And honestly, I was hoping that there would be a master volume slider as well, so I can adjust everything without clicking too much. But unfortunately, we have these 3. And honestly, I kind of wish that CD Projekt Red Enable did add some other minor options, such as music priority for specific occasions, such as combat music. So you can choose which particular musical score you wish to listen to when you're fighting monsters. The small touches like that, honestly. If you want to explore to a specific tune, you can pick that one up. Basically, a mini iPad in the game. It's dumb, I know, but it's a small quality of life feature, I think, that would greatly increase the enjoyment of the game. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the whole soundtrack of the game itself, but there are some pieces that I really love more than others, and I would be happier if I could listen to them more. There's, okay, let's not go into pointless ramblings of a weird gamer, let's just go into the options menu itself. Gameplay options basically allows you to disable or enable these 4 options: subtitles, difficult, QTEs, tutorials, and combat log. QTEs are basically QTEs. You know what they are. I'm not going to explain too much. You'll basically encounter them in fistfights and some cutscenes, which is... honestly, I think that's kind of stupid. I mean, it does work for the narrative purpose, but I really don't like QTEs in general. I could stand them in the games such as Tales from the Borderlands, Walking Dead from Telltale, or if they serve a purpose in the game. But for a fist fight, I really wish there was more developed mechanic for fist fights, honestly. Because in Witcher 1 you had a pretty decent mechanic where you could move around, consider your position, and then decide when you want to strike or not, or do you want to block. In this version, you just have to wait for a couple of seconds of animation and then press the right buttons in order to beat someone up. That's kind of boring. Anyway, control options, well, you can see it for yourself. Do I want to invert Y or X axis? Do I want to adjust the mouse sensitivity, and which controller do I prefer, keyboard or gamepad? This is honestly, this is tear-inducing in my opinion. Witcher 1 was a really good PC game, and from its sequel to fall so well, it didn't fall low, but it actually grew the game's popularity, and the whole franchise as a whole grew because of it. But I kind of wish that they did more when it came to options and gameplay features in general. As it is, they basically lowered, I don't want to say lowered the standards, but they did reduce the complexity of the gameplay mechanics for the console players, which is understandable, but then what's wrong with just creating a different control scheme and gameplay mechanics for different consoles? I mean, the graphical options are basically brightness and gamma, and how much you want to adjust them. That's it for graphics. For the extras, you can choose if you want to see credits. Do you want to see lore videos and the introductory cinematic? Which the lore videos and memories are basically 2D animated.
Or Witchers, an elite and mysterious cast of warrior monks.
Yeah, that 2D animated, 2 or 3 minute long comics. I wouldn't say comic strips, but narrated pictures of and animations of what happened and why is the world like it is. Why is the world like it is? Basically, Arena is basically something similar to a multiplayer stage where you still play solo, but you fight against other opponents, NPC opponents, and then compare your end score against the world leaderboard. And does this affect the main story? So far, I haven't seen any major differences. I mean, I didn't play this Arena too much, but even if I did play it, I did earn some weapons and armor that are better, that I honestly thought could serve as my starting items if I earned them, but no, that doesn't seem to be the case. So let's go into The Witcher gameplay itself. And as you can see, the ground starts not shaking whenever you load into a world. I'm not sure if, and occasionally you could hear a monster roaring in the distance for it, but does this summon a strong monster or something when you do it? I have no idea. From what I saw, it just shakes the world, and that's about it.
Life can be really sad.
Anyway, welcome to the world of Witcher. Very, very well constructed and animated world, as you can see. The lighting is dynamic. The light just bounces off Geralt's armor when I turn the camera around him. Not to mention the swords. People react to your behavior and weather depending on the situation. Just let's walk into this camp and draw our weapon. See? Most people do react when you draw your weapon in a non-combat area, unless they're stuck in an animation or something, or if they know you. So first and foremost, yes, the world is beautiful and it runs well on my it runs well on my PC. I haven't seen any crashes or frame rate drops so far, but there are some gameplay changes that I really, really can't stand in this one. First off, first and foremost, I've been around this. I did a little quest in this area before, and well, as you can see, there's a dead corpse here that I burnt to the ground, and that should have reduced the number of flesh-eating terrors that are terrorizing the army camp nearby. But so far, I haven't seen much of a reduction in the said necrophages that are roaming around the area. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there is not a single monster for me to fight, so I can demonstrate the combat system, which is kind of stupid. But well, that's one of my main problems with the game. Actually, I know that this is supposed to be a tough RPG and everything, and so in order to reduce the amount of grinding the players can do, when you slay monsters in a specific area, they will not spawn in for a decent amount of time. But as it is, they do spawn in, but it's questionable at times, if I do say so myself. Sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't. I mean, this quest I did with the corpses just demonstrated. I was supposed to burn most of them so that the undead would rise and attack someone. And before I started recording, there was a good abundance of them running around and terrorizing the village. Thankfully, there are some respawning enemies in the area. As you just saw, we have harpies. And I'm gonna collect this one. And as you can see, the interaction with corpses is my default attack button, which is rather dumb. Because, as I said already, if you enter a fight and it's a crowded area with interactables, before the game registers that you entered a combat phase, you might accidentally start interacting with an object, and the enemies will have a few free hits on you, which is rather annoying. And unfortunately, this shows that the game was primarily designed for consoles and nothing else. But before we continue fighting, yeah, I do apologize. Let me just say what I wanted to say. As you saw, there's a bit of a water control feature, which is automatically activated when you enter combat. Unfortunately, you cannot control this lock-on mechanic on your own. It's really dependent on your mouse, and it really depends on your mouse more than anything. which is rather annoying when you're trying to target a specific enemy. The second problem I have with the game is the control schemes are a bit laggy on the PC, if I do say so myself. As you just saw, I did an extra fast attack and an extra heavy attack, and I clicked those a couple of seconds before I killed the harpy in question. So as you can see, there is a bit of an input delay when you start fighting, and even when I let go, I kind of wish I had a mini camera for the keyboard, but I let go a second before. I let go of the movement key a second before I said the last word. Before I emphasized the last word, honestly. And Geralt still continued moving. Alright, this is a story-related quest in this area, so I'm not going to go there. I was just looking for opponents to fight. And as you can see, the combat system is... it is nicely... It does have a good animation quality to it, as well as the impact and sound of a combat situation, but it's honestly not as entertaining as the first Witcher's combat system, which relied on different stances and correct timing of your attack inputs. And here you only have two attacks, a fast one and a heavy one. You can combine those in order to kill someone or an enemy, and depending on the variety of enemies, you will either have to move yourself. Well, there's still some complexity to the game, but it's been toned down a bit for. Okay, I'm not gonna bash console players because Witcher as a franchise is an amazing game, and I'm really happy that that a bigger number of people can enjoy it. But since I played the first game, I am kind of disappointed. I am a bit disappointed when I'm not gonna lie, I got spoiled by the complexity by the mechanics of the first game. Honestly, it required me to actually consider my movement. Well, not my movement only, but my stance, my surroundings, and in general, it required a lot of thinking, and not just click on this, click, and kill this character. That's not what Witcher is usually supposed to be. I mean, they are mercenaries who specialize in fighting monsters and solving magical problems, but yeah, I kind of miss the old mechanics. Is what I'm trying to say. But not every mechanic is gone. They have been reworked for everyone's convenience, such as the quick access menu for quick items. You can for throwable objects and traps. You can quickly access your weapons as well as other spells, and also you can enter a meditative stance where you can brew potions, drink potions, meditate, or rest a bit, as well as upgrade your character when you level up. So leveling up has been, well, it hasn't been upgraded or degraded, but it does have a bit of there were some things added to it, such as the mutagens, basically. Some skill trees allow you to upgrade the specific perks with mutagens, which are smaller power-ups you can add permanently to your character. And honestly, I don't think that any mutagen affects the perk you've chosen in any way, shape, or form. It just adds you a bit of a damage reduction or vitality. I don't think it affects the specific perk in any other shape or form. So as you can see, you have 4 separate skill trees to choose from. And the good news is you're not locked into one specific tree when you start upgrading. You will have to start off with the Witcher training tree, which is the smallest. But once you unlock all 6 of them, you can unlock. You can choose whichever tree you want to unlock first. I mean, all of them are unlocked, but you can then choose a specific specialization for and how much you want to commit yourself to a specific skill tree. I would recommend that you go for the swordsman early on, just for the first chapter at least. It will give you a good damage reduction and an ability to hit other people, multiple targets basically, as well as some other movement and defensive capabilities. The alchemy will affect your, potion creation and also allow you to produce mutagens as a byproduct of some alchemical compounds, as well as affect some of your creations in a positive way. Magic will basically empower your spells, give your spells a greater kick, and also increase the amount of magic you can use per encounter. But don't worry, you can actually... your magic does regenerate as the encounter goes on, but you can speed it up through the use of your potions or magical places of power, which from what I know, there is no such place in the area. So we will have to... Actually, let's use a medallion while I'm still here. So as you can see, the medallion has also been reworked, okay, let's not compare this to the first game, let's just say it on its own merits. The medallion will react to your surroundings by glowing a bit brighter when you're near magical areas, and you can also activate it to scan the area around you a bit in order to see some interactable objects. It will usually highlight them in orange. Unfortunately, there are no interactable... Actually, there are some interactables here, such as this timber...
He does what?
Puts a pig's eye in his arse. The elder and the recruiter enter, and the mother says, "Son, they've come to take you to war." And he's standing with his back to them, his hands down. He spreads his cheeks and says, "I can see that."
Did they take him?
No chance.
They burnt a little steak, apparently. But yes, as you can see, the game has some pretty entertaining dialogue for the NPCs when you're just standing around and enjoying yourself. And also, the lock-on mechanic doesn't just work on enemies, it will also lock on to interactable objects. So if your camera isn't correctly positioned, you will not be able to interact with something. So, for example, the fireplace I just extinguished. I can enable it, I can turn it on or off, or I can just, or if the enemies are attacking me, I can also turn it on or off and then get killed. It really depends on the situation. As you can see, there are also some minigames you can partake in.
Who's willing?
Fist fighting first and foremost. And this is where that mod, the gambling mod I mentioned, is really helpful. Because any minigame you partake in will only allow you to go from a minimum of 10 gold pieces to a maximum of 20 gold pieces, or orens in this case. So if you wish to buy certain products, you will...
Make some room!
It will take you some time before you can actually earn a decent amount of coins. And this is the fist fighting minigame I was talking about. And as you can see, most fist fights are basically QTEs with, I would say, dynamic animations. They usually repeat themselves, even though you press a different button. I mean, which is understandable, but if I'm gonna press A or D for a same attack, I'm better off just playing the fist fight like a normal fight. Just left click for fast jabs and right click for heavy swings, and then just run around the arena while the enemy tries to punch me or something. It would make my life easier, honestly, and it would probably be more profitable if the amount of reward money I could get would actually be bigger. And no, that's not because I finished the fist fighting quest in the area. It's the amount of reward money stays the same, even if it's just a regular old, even if it's a quest, if it's story related. So get them on, basically. As I already mentioned, the game looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, the music and the voice acting is great as well. The small animations and the AI work also beautifully, and they react, as I already showed, to weather changes, your actions, and sometimes your choices will affect the world around you. As I already mentioned, I did destroy those corpses, so the undead eating them off, eating the set corpses are not showing up as frequently as they did, which is honestly annoying because I wanted to grind a bit more. But then again, this is how they combat grinding players, and keep the tension high for the story when you actually enter combat encounters. Let's see. Those are the good points. The combat is entertaining and challenging in its own right, but I wish there was a bit more to it than just mash left or right mouse button. You're bound to use either a silver sword or a normal sword to fight monsters and humans respectively. So silver sword will kill monsters quicker, silver sword will kill monsters quicker, and the steel sword will deal with humans and animals. Is better for humans and animals. Now, here's when where things get a bit weird. I already mentioned that there's a bit of a lag in input mechanics, and there's also a bug with the mouse, it seems, on occasions. Sometimes the mouse will just not work. In this particular case, it's working. As you can see, I can scroll up and down and choose particular potions to craft. But sometimes the choice tree will just lock in and won't let you use the mouse at all. But I'm not going to craft anything just yet. I'm just going to show you something. And this is the big part of the game that I actually hate. Please pay attention to the formula called CAT. I'm currently highlighting it, and the amount of money that's attached to it. It will cost. When I actually sell it, I'll get 4 orens, and I will lose the ability to craft a set potion, which is honestly stupid, considering the fact that Geralt is a literate person, so what's stopping him from just writing the formula in his journal and selling the formula off for a decent amount of coin when he's down for money? But that's not the only problem I have with the game. I will show you momentarily that I'm not pulling your leg or something. I'm gonna start a conversation with this vendor, and let's trade. So I'm gonna sell him the cat formula. Just give me a second to find it. So keep in mind, this formula will get me 4 gold pieces. So if I want to buy it back, it will cost me 70 gold pieces, which is 25 times more than what I sold it for. And that's not just because it's a rare or useful potion. That goes for anything that you actually sell or buy. I mean, this apple foods, the foods and fish heads, these are all considered junk unusable items that I cannot eat or use for potions or crafting materials. These are just things I can sell without too much worry, and they take up inventory space and add up to my weight, which is also a thing. If you're carrying too much weight, you will not be able to dodge your opponents or run around. You'll just have to slowly walk from one place to another. Which is honestly weird considering the fact that you can still climb up ledges or jump over them. Which would probably guarantee that which will probably drag you down if you were wearing too much weight on you. But honestly, for the game's mechanics, that's just me probably. Anyway, as you can see, most junk here is sold for 14 orens a piece, and if I sold them, let's buy one potato just so we can see how much I'll get for it. I'll get 2 gold pieces, which is 7. So basically, the price goes from 7 to 20 times the selling price when you're buying something, which is rather stupid and annoying. So yes, if you're planning on playing this, please do use the mods to reduce this.
Here yesterday.
I won't say discrepancy, but this difference in economics. It's pretty stupid, and I honestly don't like it. Anyway, what else do we have? For the quick access items, you have bombs, scrollable knives, and also traps you can deploy in the area. And depending on the trap type, you can actually reuse the set traps on multiple occasions. If you can disarm them and pick them up, you can reuse them as many times as you wish. And I would recommend that you use snares, that you get yourself a big bundle of snares, because one, they are very effective. They disrupt your enemy's attacks, and they will also deal a good amount of damage. And they can be stacked on top of each other, so you can practically one-hit combo an opponent who just steps close to you, which is good. Also, since you're a witcher, you can also use a variety of spells in order to fight off opponents. One of them is Ard, which is a basic telekinetic push. Igni, which is a fire spell. Yerden, which is a trap spell. Queen, which is... I think that's the... Yeah, Queen is a protection spell, which will create a force field around you, and Axie will charm your opponent to fight for you occasionally. And the good news is, you can occasionally use these spells in conversations, and
trouble approaches.
Not only conversations, but also within context-sensitive areas. One of them, as you already saw, is fires, where you can turn them on or off, and there are some puzzles that involve turning torches on or off as well. And, well, since we're talking about context-sensitive areas, well, not areas, but interactable objects, these are cliffs you can scale up and down. You can even jump across them. As you can see, there's one of them over there, but I had to go around the camp in order to access that area, and I'm too lazy to do it right now, but yes,
How did you wind up here?
minigames are... they're pretty basic.
We're not the best around here.
For example, the dice poker, which is a all-time favorite of the people of Temeria and Cadwin, and soldiers alike, is still present. And unlike the... Okay, I really don't want to make comparisons to the first game, but this one is a bit... it's not complex, it's just more difficult than it needs to be. Basically, you have to... Give me a second just to make my choices here. Basically, you play poker with dice, but that's not the problem here. My problem is, one, you're actually using your mouse to give your dice momentum, which in itself isn't a bad thing, but if you roll them too much, or if you give them too much momentum, they'll fall off the board, and you won't get them back until the end of the game. The second problem is you can just shake them a bit and then drop them, because it will just drop them on the floor, like so, and you'll probably lose. In this case, I won, but it's not an easy. It's needlessly difficult, if I do say so myself. It would be nicer if they just added a simple random number generation factor into it, and you just picked up which dice you want to save, and it makes your life easier. Honestly, that's what I'm trying to say. So that's it for the minigames. I'm not going to bore you with them anymore. And as the story progresses, you will enter areas which allow you to take on side jobs for slaying monsters or finding lost equipment or people. And they can be completed at your own pace. The story will not progress until you finish off the main story. Well, the story will progress until you solve the main story quest. And let's see, that's yeah. As I said, the minigames are a bit lackluster. The shops are abysmal, and the controls are laggy as a bad network connection on a multiplayer game. But thankfully, you usually have decent maps to explore, so you can, if nothing else, find opponents you can deal with and blow up quickly. So, you can enter some dungeons. You'll always have respawning enemies, so you can abuse that system in order to level up your character. Just make sure you're not. Make sure you're not. What was I trying to say? Okay, I'm gonna dodge a bit just to get myself some distance. Just make sure you're not surrounded, otherwise you're gonna get killed. But since we're here, I'm gonna use my quick abilities to actually people. So yeah, as you can see, Queen is a good protective spell, but it lasts until you get hit. It does have a time limit as well, but unfortunately, some spells don't work as intended, as you just saw. I threw a fireball at the enemy that I locked on, and it just went through him. Oh no! And bullets, and I'm dead. Oh well, what can you do? And that's Witcher 2 for you. It's a difficult game, even if your over leveled, it will find a way to kill you, which is a good balancing act, all things considered. But I really wish that that pure numbers weren't the only factor that would kill me. For example, I mean, it's understandable that that any person, no matter how powerful they are, will perish to a good number of enemies. But I really wish that there was a bit of a way where I could actually survive that many enemies. Well, honestly, it's my own fault. I'm not gonna lie. I did start running around like an idiot and got surrounded by everyone, which ended in my death. And I probably could have used more of my explosives and daggers, but honestly, I just wanted to reload and get my formula and money back. So anyway, as you just saw, this was a circle of power that we just entered, and once we activate the medallion, we will be able to see the specific place of power, which will give us a temporary temporary boost of health, armor, or spell damage, depending on, well, not just spell damage and sword damage as well. And also I can actually demonstrate to you what one major factor of the game as well that I neglected to do. As you can see, the game relies on your fighting abilities in order to survive. But that's not the only thing that you have to be careful about. You also have to utilize your potions and oils in order to prevail in a fight. So we'll go back to that dungeon right now. But before we enter, I'm gonna take a quick break just so I can drink a few potions and then enter the area. And this is one thing that I actually hate about the game. Oh dear. Okay, granted, there's no male or any genitalia usually presented to the viewer directly, but there are some cutscenes that will show you female, a topless female, or fully naked female, but her modesty will be obscured by something, usually either a quick cut to a different scene or a branch. The same goes for males, but yeah, there is nudity in this game, so it's not for children. That's a given. And honestly, there's one thing that I really should have mentioned before. Before you actually enter an area, it is advisable that you drink potions, different potions, and coat your blades in oils or venoms. And whatever you do, try not to overdo it with potion combinations, because most of these are very toxic. To a regular human, a single bottle of any of these would probably kill him. Witchers are genetically mutated in order to actually survive the drinking of the said potions, but even they cannot overdo it either. They cannot overdo it, or they will die because of the overdose. Now, here's the thing that I actually don't like about this game, specifically about the potions. You're not allowed to drink them unless you enter a meditative state, which is all fine and dandy, but it's really annoying when you're surrounded by enemies and you cannot just... give me a second just to find the proper oil for the undead. In this case, the necrophage oil. And now look and praise my presence. I need to utilize my potions correctly, and oils as well, in order to stay alive. And this is really with a better, not only a better experience, but also a better survivability. There's one thing though that I really don't like about the game. Sometimes the AI will either follow you to the end of the earth, or they will just follow you to the next corner and leave you there. As you can see, the Russians usually survive by simply defeating their opponents with numbers alone, because they're generally seriously weak and incompetent creatures and dumb creatures. But in the case of this particular fight, one of these guys stood back while the weaker one just attacked me on his own. So yeah, the AI of the opponents is random on specific occasions. I'm not gonna lie, which is weird, but it also gives you breathing room when you're actually low on health and you need to get rid of the opponents. Also, that roll attack that I did, I have no idea how or why did it happen. I did not press the attack button at all on that one. I can hear there's an... Well... It's not... I know what... Huh. Okay, there's someone here. I know that this is a cursed weapon and all, but I wish I could... that it didn't make weird noises when I'm fighting someone. And I kind of wish I could... Okay, I need to memorize that there's this place here after I'm done. So, yes, as you play, explore the areas you're in, remember where... remember where your enemies will respawn, and go there if you wish to grind for levels. And that's about it for the game itself. It's on the PC, it runs stable enough, but there is an input lag, and the general economic system is weird beyond belief. So I would recommend that you use mods before you actually start playing. And just a word of warning, if you're gonna go here, be careful. Make sure you have potions and other necessary oils, because one, there's a golem here, and he can mess your day real quick if you're not careful. And that's about it. Sometimes you'll get stuck on the environment for some reason, even though I have no idea why. And that's about it for Witcher. You fight monsters, you take jobs for plot relevant people, or just regular jobs depending on the notice from minor NPCs, and craft potions, pay exuberant prices to build weapons, or just get the diagrams for them. And honestly, there's one thing I neglected to mention. While the gameplay is a bit dodgy, and infuriating at some points, the game is really carried by its story. All the main characters are well written and well, not intentionally likable. They're easy to relate to, or you can actually like them or hate them depending on the writing. That's how good the quality of the writing is. And sometimes the games lock on features, do some weird stuff, as you just saw. I was trying to open the door, and I took a look at the poster.
Here yesterday.
So yeah, the story. Well, the main story, while not complex, it does bring up some interesting side plots. For example, in the previous hub world where I was, there was a big conflict between the elves and humans. It was primarily constructed because humans are racist. In this world, they are racist. Let's not mince words. But there's a reason to it. Before, you had elves as the dominant force of the world, and humans were, technically speaking, either a newly created race that served as either slave labor or just a childish neighbor, or that neighbor's child that could either be cute or annoying depending on the situation. But as the human population grew and the elven race declined, humans grew more and more arrogant. And this kind of annoyed the elves, so some of them started fighting to restore their race to their glory. Not just glory, but also to also get equal rights for their race in general. Unfortunately, most of these elves and dwarves that actually started fighting were extremists, and this actually caused fear and anger between the human races. So the elves and dwarves that actually lived peacefully in the area started to get attacked, butchered, and abused for no reason other than being associated by race, associated to the terrorists by race, to the terrorists, basically, for the crime of race. That's what I'm trying to say. And there's this vicious cycle that ends up repeating itself. Elves and dwarves that live peacefully with humans, they, in a small settlement, get attacked by an elven unit of freedom fighters or terrorists, depending on how you look at it. And in turn, that actually leads to a more violent outcry from humans who start abusing those who didn't even participate in the terrorists, for this one we'll call them terrorists. Basically, the humans start oppressing the dwarves and elves in the settlement because they are not human and their kind just attack them, which in turn ends up leading towards more retaliation strikes from the said terrorists, and usually the dwarven and elvish settlers that were attacked by the humans decide to join them at that point, which creates a vicious cycle of revenge and fear. And as a witcher, you end up participating in most of these conflicts, either willingly or unwillingly because of your work. And depending on your choices in the story, this will affect how certain groups will react to you, and how will the world around you will be affected mechanically. For example, I did help the blue camp over there. I did help those soldiers to fight off an elven unit, and now the elves are very, very spiteful and want to kill me whenever they see me. But thankfully now I have the protection of the blue camp right now. So that's a plus. So mechanically speaking, Witcher has good ideas and a good writing behind it. But there are some mechanical aspects that I really can't understand or really don't like. And yeah, I think that about does it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Bedomy, and if you're planning on purchasing the Witcher trilogy, I would recommend that you buy this game on sale. The story will carry you through to the end. It will encourage a multiple playthroughs. But yes, if you're playing this on a mouse and keyboard, you get ready for some hard times, and also use mods. This is not a request, this is really a recommendation. This is a very serious recommendation. Play with mods. It's easier than just stressing yourself like a moron because you have to play a bunch of minigames in order to purchase a minor potion, and then purchase the components for it. I mean, you can find the set components in the world later on, but yes, you will have to play a lot of minigames, and don't even bother saving side quest money, because that will be enough to purchase only one particular thing you need. And if it's a set of armor or weapons, you really will have to play a lot of minigames and merchandise a lot of your useless equipment and ingredients. Anyway, that's it for The Witcher 2. Would I recommend it? Yes, a bit, but only on sale, and only if you plan to play The Witcher trilogy. Otherwise, don't play it. You have Witcher 3, and that's, from what I heard, a better game all in all. Anyway, that's it for Witcher 2. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Bedomy, and good night.